Tina.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here today. I am Cristina Lecate. I am an ethical human hacker, as it was introduced, and a psychologist. I work for Cyber GmbH. It is a company that is providing cybersecurity training with a focus on strategy, processes, and compliance, because this is also very important. And I am doing all things social engineering. In fact, this is a company that my father started, and this is also the reason why I got involved in cybersecurity, because I got very early exposure. And by getting very early exposure, I also developed a very big interest very fast. And having him around, I also had the opportunity to get involved in projects from very early on, and projects that sometimes were beyond my age, but quite fun for me. So what I have done so far is penetration tests. I have been involved in forensic investigations, and of course I have been involved in training, because in the end of the day you do figure out that the human element is important. We had a great introduction about the human error, and now we are going to talk about how you can cause that human error to happen, or how you can use that human error in your favor. But first, I have my fair amount of questions on my own. First of all, who in here is a penetration tester, blue teamer, red teamer, etc.? Good. Physical penetration testers? Who in here wants to increase his personal or organizational security? Very good. And who knows overall anything at all about social engineering and how it works? Good, so we are going to do the introduction. What is social engineering? It is the art and science of skillfully maneuvering human beings to take action in some way in their lives that may or may not be in their best interest. In the malicious social engineering cases, it is not in their best interest. How does it work? Nobody goes to battle without a good strategy, so clearly there is a backbone strategy happening with two phases: planning and preparation, and execution. It starts with information gathering. Now, why? Did any of you had a first date where you didn't know anything about the other person and you were just sitting there being all like, so what is your favorite, pizza or pasta? And you practically didn't know what to do with them. Well, this is never, ever, ever the case with social engineers. Why? Because they are going to come prepared to you. They are going to know a little something about you, and they are going to leverage it. For example, they are going to know that you are a newly parent. So when they encounter you, they are going to be all like, my 3-year-old just vomited all over my papers, and now I don't know what to do. I thought I will either be late or I will be forever indebted to you. Can you please print it out for me? So this is good information gathering. This is having some intelligence on the other person that you can use and you can leverage against them. Then, second phase is identifying the possible victims and targets. What does that mean? That you need to know who is a newly parent, and you need to know who has some certain amount of vulnerability that you can leverage against them. Then you have pretexting the approach. The fact that you also appear as a mother. For example, your background story. Why are you there? Why are you asking them to do things for you? This is your pretext. And then we go to the execution, where you actually approach them, you talk a little bit, you establish some amount of trust. If you are a parent, they are a parent, you develop some sort of connection. You clearly are from the same tribe now, so you actually can be trusted a little bit more. And yeah. And then comes a little bit the manipulation type of it all, where you actually drive them to take some sort of action that you want according to your story. It all fits together nicely. In the end, once you are done with what you want to do, you leave, and you leave the other person as well, knowing or not knowing what happened. You usually don't want them to know what happened, especially before you have exited the building. But now, why social media? Why is social media so important on that? Well, really, because it's easy. It has a very low barrier to entry for everyone. And it offers advantages to everyone. For people and businesses, there is a very nice way of exposure. They can showcase their skills, they can connect with people, they engage, blah, blah, blah. There's a whole list. It's bigger. But for social engineers, it's also a fair battleground. This means that they can go there, harvest information, turn it into intelligence on you, so practically gather everything there is on you, categorize and analyze it, profile you, find your vulnerabilities, and then use it all against you. Again, why social media? It is actually being used pretty much already. Employees experience cybercrime more often on social media than any other business platform, including email, meaning that phishing email is not such a big superstar compared to social media, although it really takes most of the fame. And according to Cisco as well, Facebook scams are the #1 most used way of breaching networks. Then you have Panda Security saying that 20% of businesses are infected by malware through social media. And this is not some old report, these are all reports done last year. How do they leverage them? There are practically 2 ways social engineers leverage social media. The indirect way, they don't come in contact with you, and this is mostly the quick and dirty type of game and the numbers game. And then there is a direct contact. We're going to talk briefly about the indirect contact and then go more in depth in the direct contact approach. Indirect contact. There are the consumer scams. The consumer scams that tell you that you can get something if only you click on this link for this amount of discount. So you actually feel that you save a lot of money here, but in fact you pay a lot more and you don't even know it sometimes. You have the phishing emails that get very highly tailored according to what you post. And an example here is the example of an employee who had a very nice picnic date with all of his co-workers, and then he decided to post about it like we all do sometimes when we want to share things that we did with our people we work with and love to show engagement and all. But what happened is that he also received a phishing email shortly after that. And what was it saying? It was saying, it was coming from his other co-worker saying that, I really loved your Facebook pictures. I took my own here. Click on the attachment and you will see them. You look particularly good on this third one. He opens it. It's clearly not the pictures that he was waiting for. You have the external applications that give you this little sign saying practically, all good. It's a free app. You can use it all you want. We just need one little thing to access all your private information, just name, profile, and whatever else we might need. Whatever else they might need is everything else you have uploaded there. And what they do is they use their data and leverage it against you. Malware distribution. Okay, who has received a message like that says, I found this video from you. It is amazing. I cannot believe what they seen there. I have definitely a lot of times from people that I know or don't know. And then you have identity theft and impersonation, and these are the people that add you as a friend just because they look so nice and you have so many common friends, and in reality all they want to do is connect with you so that they can expand their network and criminal activity. Then you have the direct approach. We are going to talk a little bit more in depth about this in the demonstration. And this includes manipulation online. So practically you don't really come physically in contact, but the online contact is strong. And then you go either through a phone or again the face-to-face, the known to all of us face-to-face approach, where you either want to enter the building, install malware, gather more information, manipulate in general, get your way. Enough of the theory. We are going to jump straight into the practical part with actual posts that have been posted. I have used very similar posts in my work to leverage others. They are not as rare as you think, although some of them might look a little bit too much or a little bit too obvious. Well, you would be surprised how many people actually post these things and how easily you can leverage on them. We are going to see the post, and on top of it, there is a sign saying how you could potentially leverage on something like that. Vulnerability exposure posts. Things like, I should be more concerned about my work, but I'm really not. What does this communicate to an external party that actually wants to leverage on you? It communicates that I really don't care about my company and definitely not about the security. So if somebody comes to you with a very good story, clearly you're not going to think twice before plugging that USB. But now my favorite, and seriously, this is just candy for penetration testers, but also for social engineers, posts that require a certain type of document from a certain type of company, and they either want it urgently or they want it at work. And this is just so beautiful to see as a penetration tester and as a social engineer, but it's also so ugly on your side of you because you are going to receive this email very soon, but it's going to be nothing like you want. People that hate their jobs. Again, like the first guys, people that hate their job is not going to care about the security of it at all. Meaning that if they have some type of personal gain over something that they hate, or even if they can be revengeful over the company and their job that they hate so much, they are going to do it. If you ask them, if you give them something that is more important to them, which is most things, over something they hate, chances are they are going to do things for you that you want them to do. People that are lonely, people that have a very soft spot for women. This is quite the cookie of vulnerability. And if you think this is far-fetched, as a penetration tester, you do not do it. This is a little bit of limits. I would not suggest it. I don't think it's in any contract that you do things like that. But if you find it far-fetched, it is not. And in fact, it was used as a very successful strategy in the Cold War between East Germany and West Germany from the secret services of East Germany. What they did is that they practically sent Romeos, secret agents, to assistance of very key people in the West Germany. And what these Romeos did is that they posed as Romance fraudsters. They had done all the background research on their victims. They knew exactly what the girls needed to practically fall for them, and sometimes really they were not even that handsome. They just had their ways. They were fulfilling their emotional needs, in other words. They got so many confidential documents from these ladies. One lady even gave out more than 1,000 secret documents. And a lot of operations were compromised like that from East Germany. So do you think that this would not happen in a big company heist or in a big company breach? Let me just tell you it does. And then you have the posts that give out some aspect of what happens in the company. So for example, that you have the receptionist gossiping at work. What does that mean? That means the receptionists are bored to death. And what do the receptionists want to do to get out of their boredom? They want to talk. They want something to have to talk about, which again means give them a story. Give them something to get them interested in. They will engage with you. And that's what you want. You want them to start with engaging with you. Now make no mistake, blackmail and bribery are very, very prominent cyber attack tools. Again, no penetration tester material, but this is good for general knowledge. And we start with people that really have a big need for money, and they post about it. What do you think it happens in this case? Think here a little bit about Maslow's needs. What are the first two needs that need to be satisfied and that they are very pressing in somebody's behavior? Need for food, need for shelter, they are all covered by money. So practically, if they need money, they need to survive. How does a social engineer leverage that? Clearly, if you need to satisfy your most basic needs, you are going to do things you were not really supposed to do because it's a priority to relieve the tension of feeling safety and satisfying your basic needs. Bribery works really well here. Last thing you want to do is having external factors or third importance type of factor satisfied, like securing again. Personal relationships in the company can also be leveraged according to the hierarchy in the company and who does what with whom. This can be also very well blackmailed. And then you have people that are addicted in certain things. What happens here? A social engineer is very willing to feed your addiction and more than happy to help you with it because they leverage this against you. And make no mistake, if you have any sort of addiction, don't really talk about it because the sad reality is that your addiction and the person that can influence it for you, these two factors own you. And last but not least, you have the people with the really big egos that want their way, that believe they deserve the world, that everybody is secondary, that they deserve their luxury, that they think they are not being paid enough. And these people are just being handled because of their ego, because they need their ego to be fed, because they do believe they deserve a lot of things. So if you give them what they believe they deserve, they are going to get what they believe they deserve. If this means compromising a little something, they are going to compromise this, because it's all about them after all. Let's just say, however, that these were a little bit far-fetched. This is clear vulnerability exposure. Let's say none of you does any of these. None of you posts that personal things, and none of you posts these company inside information. Let's say you're completely media savvy. Nobody knows anything online about what your exact job position is. Nobody knows anything about your vulnerabilities. But you still want to share a little something to engage with your friends, to find other job opportunities, to have other colleagues talking with you. And you post a little something online again. Let's say you're media savvy. What are the other angles somebody is going to try to read you from? There are certain traits that help a lot. Extraversion. Why? Because it means you're happy and willing to talk with other people that you don't know, and you do this. Empathy, helpfulness, trustfulness, gullibility, and more. Now, these are all very good traits, and I'm not telling any of you not to have them and get all suspicious, lock themselves in the basement, or put newspapers in your rooms, in your windows. No. This is not about not posting anything online and being all suspicious and distrustful of everyone. Be a little bit distrustful, okay, trust, but verify. But this is more about knowing how things can be leveraged against you and knowing how to put boundaries when people come to you and they are very nice, they are very likable, but start making strange questions. The point here is know that a lot of things can be used. Put boundaries. How are your key traits being assessed? Well, your overall personal brand. The way you carry yourself, the words you use, your selection of activities, interests, responsibilities, they all can be used for somebody to approach you, to profile you, to engage with you, and ultimately to manipulate you. But we have an example. We have the example of Tom. We know nothing about his work. We know nothing about his vulnerabilities, but can you make some good assumptions perhaps about his interests are? What are they? Anyone? So yeah, one is travel, another one is fitness, another one is social life. Anything else? Cars. Yes, this is another one of them. So you start looking at things in the big picture, in the general overall personal brand. Whoop, yeah. You look at body language. Who knows a little bit about body language in the room? We have 2 people, 3. Great. A little bit on body language. In this case, he is being all expansive and open. He does not feel the need to protect the vital organs by being all closed up in some way. This shows some level of confidence. He's even half naked in some of them, meaning he really doesn't try to hide behind barriers, showing somebody who is actually very comfortable with himself, very open, and yeah, very open. Yeah. He's very. He's definitely showing the abs, but he's also really confident and comfortable with himself. And the fact that he exaggerates it could mean the opposite, but when it comes to feeling comfortable, no. He's comfortable with the whole thing. Then we have a variety of face expressions, which you do not see, but yeah, okay, how much can I expose him anyway? But I was able to see, and I can see that he's being very, very expressive. The choice of colors matter because depressed people tend to be drawn to more dull colors. He is here very happy, very colorful, very vibrant. So we know a little bit of something about his psychosynthesis. Locations vary, so a lot of interest, a lot of outdoor activities, and we can also see different people in different situations. You do not see them because, again, how much can I expose someone? But they are all different, and we have very intimate postures with them, usually. So you can tell that he is someone who actually has a wide social circle and gets close to people. But this is just information. You cannot really leverage this. These are assumptions that you do that you need to verify or strengthen. And that, yeah, you need to turn practically into intelligence because it's one thing to have information, it's another thing to have intelligence. How do you make sense of them? I have made a profiling matrix with 4 columns on the x-axis, 3 columns on the y-axis that assess personality traits, interests, wants, vulnerabilities, and then, of course, his self-image, because you want to approach him according to his self-image, social life and professional life. A little side note, people don't show on Facebook or social media who they really are. They show who they would really want to be and how they would really like to be perceived by others. Now, you might think that this can be a problem because you don't address them with how they really are, but this is in fact excellent. Because when you encounter someone, you actually want to support who he believes he is. And you want to encourage this idea of who he believes he is. So you can actually work better with him on the level of how he wants to be treated. We had the overall brand. We made some assumptions. We need to see if they actually stand. We look further at other things, what he writes, specifically his words, the patterns that come out of his words, and the style of his expressions, the way he expresses himself. How do we do this? We look at posts. So we start. He says, hustle to make your dream your reality in the first line. I have categorized them for you already. Life is a game, play to win. Let your hustle be louder than your words. What do you think this could point us out to as a trait? It points us out to an ambitious person. He moves on. Don't decrease the goal, increase the effort. Some things that he did in life that he put as goals and he actually made happen, this points out to determination. We strengthen our previous assumptions a little bit more. He moves on. They care about income, I care about the impact. Do you notice a little bit something about the expression, the way he expresses himself? Before, he was all like, play to win, do this or do that. I did this, I did that, you can do it too. He wants to play a little bit authoritative. He wants to give advice. The way he carries himself is giving advice without being asked to. So you can assume that he is actually a person that wants to be addressed in the same way that he poses himself as. So he wants to have a certain amount of influence on others. Other posts, what is life without a little risk? Make your life your adventure, yada yada. He wants to have a little bit of risk and adventure. And again, we see the pattern of giving advice and appearing authoritative. And some social engineering candy as well. Making new friends should be part of every trip. And then he also explains how he started talking to somebody who did not know. I started chatting with a random guy next to me, not unusual for me, which is perfect because now you know you can actually approach him and that he is an extrovert. This strengthens your previous assumptions and it fulfills some extra points on what he wants because of the way he expresses himself. How can you find out a little bit something about his professional life? You add up the two previous categories, and you can make some logical assumptions. A person like this is not going to be your back office guy. He would be just so depressed. He is a person that wants to communicate with people all the time, that gives advice, that wants to be out there. He's not going to be a back office guy. He's going to be a frontline person. Would he be a consultant, an instructor? He would love to be an instructor. A manager. Something along these lines, so you can actually see where he stands in the company. Ideally, he would be team leader or in management. And then you still want to have a little bit of assumptions on his vulnerabilities so that you can see whether you can leverage in a conversation. What do? It is a psychological principle that when we run with all our strength towards one thing, it's because we try to run away from the other. So we take all the previous columns on how he sees himself, on how he presents himself, on what is important to him, and we turn it around because in reality he just tries to avoid the exact opposite, which means he tries to avoid being ineffective, being not useful. He wouldn't like to be rejected. He wouldn't like to have low impact, all of these things. What does that mean? That if you were to approach a person like this, you would not go all like, listen, son, I'm going to teach you how life is done. No, you would approach him on a level that would be more like, I really need your help, and you look like you can offer some really useful advice. But then, if he is, let's say, a little bit sophisticated, and if he offers advice up to a point, a social engineer can be flexible enough to leverage some of the vulnerability assumptions. Meaning that if something happens and the person puts a blockage on you, you can start being a little bit like, you know what? I have been spending all this time with you. I have shared so much about me, and I just don't see any value of this conversation. You haven't offered anything back. Your advice hasn't been very useful. Don't you have a personal experience or something? What is going to happen is that this person is going to want to try to prove what he wants to believe for himself and thus prove you wrong. So he will actually try to offer a little bit more than he did before, in this case, if your assumptions stand. How does a social engineer use all that? Clearly, the first two columns, the interests and wants columns, help to build the ground, to approach the other person, to engage with them, to talk on a level that they understand, that they are interested in, and make conversation with them. And it helps a lot in building rapport. If he has that much information to work with, this is going to be relatively easy. The vulnerabilities column is used strategically when you come across a blockage and you want to pinch the other person to give a little bit more, but always careful with that. And of course, everything is being tailored to the way you respond. He has a lot of information to work with. Now, on the other information and the overall personal brand, how does he use all that? It helps him a lot in his pretext. Why? Because we all like people that look like us. We feel like we come from the same tribe if we have a lot of shared personality points with another person. So what happens here is that a social engineer can use this whole table to craft his personality, because in the end of the day, we like people that look like us, so he's going to look exactly like you. On a little side note, you can do things about it. You can do something about it to increase your personal and organizational security. Take this as a little bit of a checklist. Some things are common sense, but just remember that common sense is not common practice. You can take a picture. I don't want to stay on this point very much. These are the do's. My time is up. These are the don'ts. Good. And just remember, because I know this question will come, if I do all these things, am I going to be completely secure? The answer is no, never. But the point is not to be completely secure. The point is here that you want to eliminate layers of attackers, meaning that you don't want the school boys having a lot of leverage on you because they want to impress their first girlfriends. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Christina. The slides will be shared afterwards, so you will all get the chance to have a look at the best practices. I actually have the first question.
Go ahead.
The advantage of chairing a session. We were talking a lot about trust, and in security, we talk a lot about trust. Building trust in the security community and being here to learn. And Jelena was talking about people trust me too much. Maybe I should doubt that. And you were presenting us with an example of people are very confident, they trust in the others, and they expose a lot of information. Where should the boundaries be?
The boundary should be on what you share about your job. The boundary should be on whether you share sensitive information, because a lot of people share sensitive information about their jobs. So, for example, in the case of the Romeos, if the women knew a little something, the women that were approached, if they knew a little something about social engineering, they would trust their partners, but when they would ask them for documents from their superiors, they would not really give them, and they would be like, okay, you're my Romeo, I feel very connected with you, but I'm not supposed to do that. And there is a boundary, and there needs to be a boundary on things that you should not share with others, and not just be too open or do too much, although you know it's against policy sometimes, because people do things against policy.
Thank you. And now for the first question.
There.
I will start there.
Hi, I'm Paul. I'm a penetration tester from the UK. If we were interested in adding social engineering or physical penetration testing to our skill sets, are there any resources that you'd recommend that we could start with, or any particular knowledge bases that you're aware of that you'd recommend that we could use as a resource?
Can you repeat?
So for further research and further investigation into developing social engineering skills?
Social psychology is your go-to, definitely, because it helps you understand other people, and it helps you being more comfortable in dealing with them. So social psychology definitely is a very relevant topic here.
Are there any particular sort of resources for research that you're aware of that we might be able to use? Any particularly useful?
Yes, there are a lot. There are really a lot. We can have a conversation afterwards, and I can tell you all about it. And whoever else wants is also very welcome. But otherwise, this will be a very wide answer.
Okay, next question. Let me start with the person in the back, since you already mentioned something before.
Me? Okay. I actually have two questions, if it's not taking too much time.
Let's start with the first one,
okay,
and then let's see how many others we have.
I just have to. Yeah, they are related in a way. The first one is, if you actively social engineering someone, do you have a personal problem with that? Because I always, for me, I stay a lot, for example, in Airbnb apartments, and you learn a lot about people if you just stay in the apartments. You see a lot of pictures on the wall, books, and and furniture and stuff. Doesn't it feel creepy to you? And if yes, how do you deal with that personally? So.
Sure, it feels creepy. Sure, sometimes you also need to sleep at night as a person. What I do is that I separate my professional life from my personal life. I know that when I do it professionally, it's not so that I can scam the other person and give him nightmares and harm them. I do it to help them, because if I don't do it and somebody else with malicious intent does it, then they're going to have a way worse time than if I do it and prepare them for somebody else in the future that would have malicious intents. So in this side, I feel good with myself because I protect. But on the personal side, I do not do this in my personal life, really, because a very, very important differentiation is it is one thing to use the skill set to influence others, and whole other story to use them to manipulate others. Manipulation is very short-lived. In the end of the day, somebody else will understand that you use it against them and it's not doing them any good. But if you use this skill set to build others up and give tailored advice and help, this works much better. And honestly, in your personal life, in anybody's personal life, I believe we all just want a clean slate and very clear relationships. And you cannot go very far in life without having very clear relationships with others. And that's how I sleep at night.
Thank you. Let's see how many other questions we have in the room before I let you do the second one. Hands up, who still has a question? Erwin, please start.
Yeah. I try to connect only with those people I've met before and in the physical world. Would you recommend this as a rule of thumb?
As a rule of thumb in your physical world and your everyday life?
Yeah, when I'm on Facebook, on Xing, on LinkedIn, you always get on a regular basis requests for connection. So I try to limit the answer to those I've met before and in the physical world. Would you recommend this?
Yeah, I would recommend you basically don't add too many people that you don't know. And if you do, again, just know how what you share can be used against you and know how to put your boundaries in what you will actually share with another person. Sometimes other people add you on Facebook so that you can see them as well and feel a certain level of comfort with them if they come to approach you in the end and like you know them. So as a rule of thumb, if you don't really have to add anyone, don't add anyone.
We had a question from the right side of the room.
Hi, just a question. So does the John profile really exist, or is it just a profile fictitious made for this presentation?
This is I had this question last time. Everything is real. Everything comes from real profiles and from real people, and that's why faces and names are eliminated. Yeah, but in fact, these are also a lot of examples that there were some examples that I have personally used as well, and they are all real.
Thanks.
Show of hands, who still has questions? Do we have anybody who belongs to a minority group who might have a question? Since we had a lot of men asking questions so far.
Women are the minority.
Okay. Then hands up again, please, once more. We'll go with this side of the room first.
Hi, thanks for the great talk. Maybe a follow-up on the thing how you connect on Facebook or LinkedIn. We've recently seen a lot of people uploading their personal context to LinkedIn because they make it kind of easy to go down that path. And regarding your example, do you have any suggestions once the information is out there? How can I fix it afterwards?
Depends on the information that is out there. But yeah, how can you fix it? Take it down if it doesn't really have to be there. And if you cannot take it down, you really need to find your ways of dealing with it and knowing the fact that somebody can use them. And there's this whole little honeypot strategy that you can have, so that if you upload some information that actually matter and you don't want them to be out there, depending on the content always, of course, you can also upload some honeypot information and mislead people. But that's a whole other story. That's again a big answer.
And the last question for Christina's talk. There was somebody on this side of the room? Not anymore?
There.
Okay. Hand up, please. I do. Okay, then I'll give up.
Thank you very much for this great presentation. My question, as an incident responder, sometimes or users or people generally, they only notice that information that they disseminated is critical and was used to breach some company or something afterwards. Mm-hmm. And you mentioned, don't post critical information. I always find it very difficult to see, is this critical information that I'm posting right now? Sometimes in this context, in today's context, it's not critical. But 2 weeks later, you realize, oh, crap, this was critical. What's your take on this, defining critical information?
Critical information, it also depends on who is actually targeting you. So for the not so sophisticated attackers, critical information are things like the vulnerability posts that I posted, things that show some type of weakness, or things that expose things that happen in the company. You should not really communicate what happens in the company because it can be used. Generally, try to keep it as innocent as possible. If you can really name something as completely innocent, because you can see everything can be used.
Yeah.
in the end of the day. So if somebody is extremely sophisticated, every piece of information is critical information. You cannot always control that. And this is why training is so important in the end of the day. You cannot control the threat of having somebody using even the smallest piece of information against you. But if your employees know how to handle attackers, this is critical, in fact, and not as much what they say, because they are going to share things. On the very, very basic level, nothing about the company, nothing about the things that have not been published publicly about the company, and yeah, no vulnerabilities.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Christina.